weight is kind of irrelevant. It's straining and tension, which is what's relevant. Weight only becomes relevant when it gets... Max Merrick. When coming back from a serious injury that requires surgery, what advice can you
give to help with the mental fear people can have when trying to lift heavy again? I tore both. He's had injuries that required surgery, 7 weeks apart from each other. He still has a little fear of deadlifting over 405, so he only uses overhand grip.
I got to preface this by saying I'm not a physical therapist. I'm not a doctor. I can only speak on, the injuries that I've had and the way that I came back from those. The mental aspect is a big part of coming back from the injury. It's Alexia said in the one article that we've posted and reposted now several times now, you really don't know if you're a good lifter or not until you've come back from a serious injury. And some will even say that you really don't even learn how to train until you come back from a serious injury. But for a lot of people, a serious injury is what puts them out, so they never come back from that. I would say the majority of the people, that's usually that. I'm always hesitant with this shit because if I had a team member sitting across from me, I always have 2 answers that I can give them. And it's always going to be prefaced with, what is your next competition and when is it? And then they'll answer, then how important is it to you? Because there's always a way to get to the next meet, even if it's 4 or 6 weeks out. Now, if you get hurt 3 weeks out, that may not be the case. But there's always a way to get there. But let's say every time that you do that and you try that aggressive way to get to the injury, you're probably going to pull a year off the back end of your career. I can say that now looking back because I definitely took a lot of years off the back end of my career by trying to get ready for a meet with an injury suffered 4, 6, 8 weeks out. Some that required surgery as well. I just personally, to reiterate that point again, couldn't live with myself if I ever pulled out of a meet because of an injury. That's just me. I'm not saying that other people need to be that. I'm actually on the far opposite end when I'm giving people advice. But regardless of the timetable, if you're going to take your time coming back or you're going to rush it coming back, you still have to deal with the mental aspect of being able to come back from the injury. I'm biased in my training. I've always stated that I'm biased in my training. I'm a conjugate guy, concurrent, west side, whatever, however you want to define that. With my first serious injury, which was my first pec tear, tendon reattachment, I took a conservative route. And that conservative route led to a doctor telling me I never bench 405 again, which, I remember that conversation distinctly because at the time I had a 520 bench without a shirt and a 540 with a shirt. That's how well I knew how to use the shirt. When it's ingrained in your mind and you're coming back from the injury and it's slow, you start to get up to 315, 365, and you get a little gun shy. And with pecs that I've seen, and not just with myself, but with other people, there's a lot of scar tissue damage that will happen when you come back from the process. It will feel like your pec tore again, where it could just be the scar tissue. I had that with the first time for probably about a year. And that there made me really gun shy as well. And fortunately, I was at Westside, so every time I would pull back on something because of that, Kenny Patterson, or it was usually Kenny Patterson, would start throwing tissues at me and telling me to wipe my tears because I was basically just being scared. And I found a way to get through all that, so it took about a year. But after the second surgery I had to have, which was my shoulder, I believe, I came straight out and I did consult with a couple physical therapists about this. They thought I was fucking nuts, but they thought there was some validity behind it. So I'm not going to say this is right by any means, but I didn't change the training at all. I kept in my max effort work. I kept in my speed work. I did any of the rehabilitation stuff after that. Now I do remember 2 days after surgery, my max effort work was a reverse band press with a broomstick and like a dime on each side off of a 4-board, because I could barely get my arm up to grab the bar. So all I wanted to do was to strain and to teach the tissue and my mind to strain and have it be at a weight that would be somewhat maximal. I mean, you're coming back from surgery, so it's that can be defined many different ways. But mentally, I wanted to be able to strain, because I figured if I had to strain with under 45 pounds, and then the next time I did it, I had to strain with 65 pounds. And then the next time I did it, I had to strain with 95 pounds. Then the next time I had to strain with 85 pounds. And I did keep the tempo slower. So about half the speed that I would typically use. Then by the time I did get back up to 315 or whatever the weight was going to be, I've already strained in a 3 to 5 second time under tension range for the concentric dozens of times, if not 100 times. So mentally, there was no fear that, to me, the tendon was fine. You know, everything was going to hold because I've already strained it so many times beforehand. Weight is kind of irrelevant. It's straining and tension, which is what's relevant. Weight only becomes relevant when it gets to a point where it's going to throw you out of the groove, and then it takes you out of where your strongest bar position is and throws you into a weaker bar position. That's when weight can become, that's why you miss lifts. So from that standpoint, that's how I dealt with the mental aspect, is I dealt with it from week 1 instead of just conservatively training, and then getting close to 60, 70% where you were, then thinking, oh, fuck, is it going to happen again? So I made it part of the actual rehab process from day 1. I would still consult with any physical therapist you work with my hip replacements. When I came back from that, I used the same type of protocol. I did run this through the surgeons and the physical therapists, and there were some modifications that we had to make in regards to that, as far as tempo and box height and stuff like that. But I used the same type of training template. I had a max effort day, I had a speed day. Obviously the weights are changed tremendously, and then all the supplemental work after that was all the rehabilitation work that needed to be done for the joint stability and so forth. That's the best advice I can give there, is what I've done. I can't give you any other advice outside of that because that's not my scope of practice.